Hello, everyone. Friends, Romans, countrymen. This is going to be a video where I will do a retrospective of every book in the Give Yourself Goosebumps series that I have read, which is not all of them. It's up to... Okay, memory escapes at the moment. It's close to the end of the series, but not quite. Few books I've read. Okay, so before I get into this, let's talk about... Okay, so what... Why is it that the two biggest Goosebumps blogs have both become like the Goosebumps blog equivalent of George R. Martin? Like, seriously, okay. Troy Steele, MJN Cypher. If by any chance either of you is watching this, please finish your blogs. I beg you, please. Okay, anyway, now, I'm going to go through the series in the order that... I'm going to go through the installments in the series in the order that they were originally released, with the special editions in their proper places within that order, not separately. Although again, keep in mind, this is most, but not all of the books in the series, so keep that in mind. Now, the first book in the series is, of course, Escape from the Carnival of Horrors. Now, this is not the first Give Yourself Goosebumps book I read, but it is one of the first. So, this one's pretty good. I mean, I gotta say, I love the cover by Tim Jacobus with a crocodile, which, oh, by the way, I have all the books, I have all the books here, but they're sprawled out. They're not organized, properly, so I'll pick up the relevant book I'm talking about sometimes if I can find it, but they're all in this giant stack here. And there's also Jane Eyre here, huh? Okay. Yeah. And it's possible some of them may not even be here. I don't know. But if you would like to see the covers of any of them, they're readily available online. So yeah. Okay. So now, right. So yes. Now, in general, I'm really interested in this sort of evil carnival / evil circus theme. For example, I'm a big fan of the film Something Wicked This Way Comes. And I think the book does it fairly well. Now, most of the books in this spin-off series have some sort of reference to the main Goosebumps series, right? But I feel like this first installment has way more references than most of the other books do. Most of the books have one or two notable references to other Goosebumps books. This one has 4 or 5, right? There's the spoilers. There's the Doom Slide, there's Slappy, the evil dummy, there's Monster Blood, and probably maybe one or two other things I'm forgetting. Three different three different Goosebumps series get referenced there. I mean, series within the main series, and they almost all play key roles in various parts of the story in one way or another, depending on what you choose to do. So, okay, I'm not going to list my favorite endings for all of them because I don't have an encyclopedic memory of all the endings. But sometimes, if I can think of one I really like, I will note it. So, there's this bad ending that, when I first read the book, I really liked it. Where I just thought it was really cool, where you think you're getting rescued by someone, but it turns out that there's actually a monster. They're like, you say, "Oh, save me," and they respond "Save you? Great idea. I'll save you for a midnight snack." I thought that was great. Yeah. Okay. So now, the second book in the series, TikTok, You're Dead. Now, this book is about time travel, and it's one of those books where your character is basically stuck with an annoying younger sibling. And so, basically, it's one of those situations where, where your parents make you look after him and so on. And of course, you can choose whether you want to go to the past, or the future, you know. Personally, I think the past sections, well, I think both the past and future sections in the book are fairly well done. You know, one interesting thing is that the book, at least the original version of the book, anyway, it opens with you. Or one of the first things you say in the book uh, is that because you and your parents are taking vacation in New York, right? One of the first things you say in the book is that you're excited to go visit the World Trade Center. I mean, okay, to be fair, there is the one World Trade Center now, I guess, and you don't actually refer to the Twin Towers. You just say World Trade Center, so maybe that wouldn't be so bad now, actually. But for a long time, anyway, that was considered an example of something that really aged poorly, at least by me. It's funny, I mean, isn't it? Not that I dislike it. It's a very interesting, thing that stamps it in a particular that makes clear it's from a particular time. Apparently, someone I saw someone online complaining that they still hadn't changed that in like a later edition or something. Interesting. Okay. So the next one is Trapped in Batwing Hall. Now, I think that's probably one of the best ones. Um, I think both of the main stories in it are really good, right? So basically, yeah. So one of the stories concerns you having to break a curse that's turned a bunch of kids into monsters, and the kids are the antagonists until you break the curse. And the others, and you have to go on a scavenger hunt to like find weird items like a mummy's hand or something, or bone from mummy or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, something like that. And the other storyline involves you turning into a bat. Like you actually physically turn into a bat. You know. Well, okay, it's a little more complicated. So basically, during the day you're not actually physically a bat, but like you have a lot of physiological similarities with bats. Like you only want to eat what bats eat, and you don't like being out in the sunlight, right? And at nighttime you actually like fully transform into a bat and fly around. I think both stories are very well done. It's also interesting to note this may be, I'm not sure, this may be the first Give Yourself Goosebumps book where there's a totally unwinnable side story. So again, spoilers here, but so basically there's this bit where you can, it's in the storyline where you turn into a bat. You can, you know, go into venture deeper into the crypt that turns you into a bat in the first place, you know, and you find this weird world that seems like maybe it's implied to be hell or something. Maybe, but it's not made clear. Uh, oh, and there's also a weird library there. Anyway, yeah, but basically, once you enter that area, there's no way to get a good ending. I don't think. Like either you end up rowing off to what's implied to be hell, or something like it, you know, or you end up, I think, stuck in like a library eternally, which might not sound like a bad thing to some people, but it's like this weird thing where you have to. I don't remember exactly, but it's like some kind of punishment, I think. Well, I should say most people would think it was like a punishment, like it would be pleasant. Number four, okay, book number four is The Deadly Experiments of Dr. Yeah, but I don't really have good transitions here for like transitioning from one book to another. I just, sorry, I apologize if it gets old, me constantly saying the next one. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so The Deadly Experiments of Dr. Eek. Now, okay, this book, okay, which, oh, I actually know where it is. Okay, the lighting's not great. Okay, let's go. Yeah, sorry, the lighting's not great. Well, here we go. Let's just. Wait, what the? What am I doing? Never mind. Anyway. Okay, yes, but this is the book. Oh, there goes. Okay, yeah. So this book has a very misleading cover. So it depicts what seems to be like an angry, evil chimpanzee or something. I mean, when in reality, that's not the antagonist of the book at all. You know, the antagonist of the book is actually an evil mad scientist who's very much human, right? So yeah, it's basically this is one of those stories where you have to deal with this mad scientist who wants to use you for all kinds of crazy, crazy and dangerous experiments, that sort of thing. Like there's like virtual reality where you get spoilers, killed by a Komodo dragon and a bad ending and so on. Even though it's virtual, but it's yeah. And there's a very interesting part where your character is trapped in a maze. Okay, so it's probably going to get redundant if I keep saying spoilers over and over, so I'm just going to say from here on out, spoiler warning, consider yourself warned for every Give Yourself Goosebumps book um, until Scary Birthday to You, and that includes all the special editions released during that period. Oh yeah, just spoiler warning from here on out. Okay, here on out. Okay, yeah, so there's this interesting part in the book where Dr. Eek has trapped you, the protagonist has trapped you in a maze, and you're wandering around. You're really hungry. You're really desperate to find some food, and you run across a vending machine, and you use it, and this food comes out, and you eat it. Except it turns out that it's this food that turns you into a dog. I think maybe it's dog food, I don't know, magical dog food, or scientific, whatever, scientific dog food. The mad scientist. But anyway, dog food that turns you into a dog. And then you can get this ending where you stay a dog, but in most other respects, it's actually a happy ending. Like you become very successful as a dog with your human mom who doesn't know that you're, who adopts you, but even though she doesn't know who you are. Right? Yeah, I think it's a pretty good book. The interesting thing with Dr. Eek, I don't know, in theory, there isn't really much to distinguish him from a lot of other evil mad scientist characters, from what I can recall. But I still, as a kid reading the book, always found him to be a compelling and memorable character for whatever reason. I mean, I just think he's kind of drawn well. Seems believable to me. I mean, now I should note I talked about the misleading cover. There are chimps. There are chimps in the book, but it's just not. There just isn't like an evil chimp with like a torn lab coat, like an evil or angry chimp in the book, as far as I can recall. Like the one that's on the cover. Okay. Now the fifth one here, Night in Werewolf Woods. Yes, fifth one here. Now, as the title would indicate, this book is very much themed around the concept of the player character encountering werewolves, right? However, there's also an additional feature you might not expect from the cover, where in one storyline you have to deal with this like evil troll that like gains the power to control you and make you do his bidding and so on, like by whistling, and you have to find a way to free yourself of it. Anyway, there's a storyline with that also involves werewolves. There are other stories. If I remember correctly, virtually all the stories in the book, I think, at least most of them, unsurprisingly, involve werewolves to some degree. Um, there's just got lost in thoughts. Sorry. There's this book. Blah, blah. I mean, there's a scene in the book where that I always think about, where like you're with this elevator operator and he just suddenly turns out to be a werewolf. It's like, oh shit, God, that's memorable. It's not, from what I recall, I think it's not necessarily a bad ending. I think you get another choice after that. I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah. See, I suppose it may not be my favorite Give Yourself Goosebumps book, but I don't think it's terrible though. By any stretch necessarily. All right. Next one. Okay, beware of the purple peanut butter. Now I remember I found I found this thing online where someone said, like, I think maybe it was Damien or something from Damien's Gamebook webpage, that website, where he said, like, wouldn't eating purple peanut butter give you food poisoning? I mean, all right, anyway, but it's kind of funny, I guess. But okay, so and now in the book, the titular purple peanut butter, basically, if you eat it, it causes you to shrink, right? Now I don't recall if it's explained whether this is magic or science. I think maybe it is, but I can't remember. I can't remember. Yeah. However, that's only one of the two storylines in the book. The other one involves eating cake that makes you grow larger. So the setup for this book story is that you have to hang out with your cousins who you hate, Barney and Dora. And this book came out, as MJ and Cypher, I think it was, or someone else pointed out, this book came out before Dora the Explorer, so the whole Barney and Dora thing is just a coincidence. Probably. I mean, although Arlstein did really hate Barney and Friends, so maybe he did mean something in naming an unpleasant bully character Barney. Anyway, but as we'll get to later. But yeah, so yeah, basically, you hate both of your cousins, but for very different reasons, right? You hate Barney because, as I mentioned, he's just a bully. He's kind of a dickhead, and basically, you hate Dora because she always wants you to play with her and do stuff with her, and the kind of stuff she does, like, you're just not very interested in. Like, she wants you to, like, play with her dollhouse and stuff, and you're just not very interested in that. So basically, in order to hide from both your cousins, you run, and also because you're hungry, you run down to the basement, and you find this fridge, and you open it, and you find the purple peanut butter and the cake, right? And so, yeah, choosing which one to eat is what determines which storyline you pick. So, personally, okay. Personally, I think that the purple peanut butter storyline is probably done a bit better, I guess. It's a tough call, but I think it's done. I think that one is probably done a little better. It's got it's one of the books in this series where where your choice is determined by something that you can't control, like what, in one case, like I think it's like what month you're born in or something like that. Yeah. All right. The next book here is Under the Magician's Spell. Now, as you might guess, this book has a bit of a magic theme. So basically, the two storylines in this book are that. So one of the storylines is that you have to fight this evil magician. Yeah, you have to fight. You have to fight this evil magician, and the other story. Well, okay, I can't remember exactly what the other story is at the moment, but it's. I believe it's something to do with your little sister. I don't remember. Anyway, but there's this really weird surprise bad ending in it, where the grandmother of this person turns out to be, well, she drugs your food to paralyze you, and then it turns out that after she's done that, she's going to, eat you. Right? Like, which is, yeah, it's a kind of bizarre surprise ending, bad ending. There's also this interesting bad ending where you basically you summon a genie to try to help you, but he just teleports you to his castle and forces you to work as a slave eternally, and that's it. I always thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, there's this section of the book I remember where you have to fight this, well, fight what you encounter, this, like, I think it's a snake woman or something. Where it's one of those choices where you have to choose between two paths, and if you pick the wrong one, things go to shit. You know, with those. But fair warning, there may be some cursing in this. I know this is a kids book series. I'm not necessarily going to try to keep this family friendly, just so you know. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought I would have a lot to say about this book, but like at the moment, I'm not getting as many specific memories from that one, like that are coming to the fore that I want to talk about for whatever reason. Um. Yeah. Oh, there's this other kind of weird bad ending where it doesn't actually end as such. It's just considered a bad ending because it would take you so long, because it would take you a ridiculously long amount of time to achieve your goal. So the narrative basically just gives up at that point. It's kind of interesting. Okay, so the next book is The Curse of the Creeping Coffin. So this is probably one of the best installments in the series. So I think the main storyline of the book involves you having to sort of, fight this evil ghost who's influencing all these other ghosts, to slowly move closer to your grandmother's house where you're staying on vacation, you know. And there's this particularly gruesome bad ending you can get where you have to pick the right gravestone. If you pick the wrong gravestone, the ghost from that gravestone, like, basically throttles you. Very quickly, like, it's like, by the standards of this book series and the target audience, it's described in a gruesome way. Uh, the other story basically involves you having to deal with this, like, sort of mischievous ghost kid, but he's not necessarily evil. He's just, you just have to figure out what to do with him, right? Now, one thing I find very interesting in this book is that there's a surname in this book, Estep. Now, what I find weird is that when I read this book, I had never previously encountered that surname, but when I looked it up, I found what seemed like numerous examples of it. It just seems odd that it's such a common surname, and I've like never run, and yet despite that, I've never run into it anywhere else in this book. That it seems very bizarre to me. I don't know how to explain that. Um, anyway, okay, so the next book is The Knight in Screaming Armor. So this book features an evil knight, as the cover might indicate. So basically, this book doesn't really have it doesn't really have two full separate storylines, right? Basically, it's just two different ways to get to the same final showdown, with an evil knight. Now, this is one of the first GYG books that I read. There's a part where the outcome of an event is determined by whether you're sitting on a cushion or a chair. That's memorable. I found the evil knight in this book to be written fairly effectively. It seems kind of terrifying. One thing that's interesting is that I'm gonna drink some water real quick. Back in a second. Ow. That was my dog, Mari. Okay. Now, okay, one thing that's kind of odd, interesting about this book is that, okay, so now obviously the nature of these books, these kinds of, game book, choose your inventor type works, the nature of them, right, is that you're supposed to be able to imagine that you're the main character, right? Because you literally are the main character, right, in these stories. And as such, right, usually not too many, details regarding gender or ethnic identity are included in the story so that no one will feel excluded, right? So that way anyone can imagine themselves as the protagonist. But in this book, your character is explicitly stated, you know, to have at least some English ancestry, right? Which obviously that kind of means that anyone reading the book who doesn't have any English ancestry is automatically going to feel excluded, right? I mean, that's a bit unusual for the series to specify that for the reason I just mentioned, right? But odd. Yeah. Next one. Okay. Next one is Diary of a Mad Mummy. Eh. Now, okay, so this book is okay. So it's pretty much what it sounds like, right? It's an adventures thing where you have to deal with an evil mummy, or at least you end up exploring ancient Egypt, depending on what storyline you pick. So okay, there's this part of the book that I remember really well, where the player character is served, where you get served blue lemonade, right? And the narrative basically tells you, you know that the narrative asks you to make a choice. Do you want to drink the blue lemonade or not? And basically, if you choose to drink the blue lemonade, you get chewed out by the narrator. You get chewed out by the text for being stupid. They're like, lemonade isn't normally blue. Why would you drink, some blue lemonade that was just given to you by someone you don't know in a bar? So, right? Like, right? Like, it's obviously probably drugged. That's why, like, and indeed drinking it puts you to sleep, and there's also this whole bit where, like, you and I think, if I remember correctly, I think that you and the mummies switch bodies at one point. I think, unless I'm confusing that with another Goosebumps book or something. Maybe I am. I don't know. Yeah. And there's also this bit where there's really blatant parody of Indiana Jones, whose features. That's funny. Okay. Okay, the next book is Deep in the Jungle of Doom. Okay. So this book it's a jungle adventure. What's kind of interesting is there's a monster on the cover which apparently is actually supposed to be the player character, because you get turned into a monster in one of the storylines. That's interesting. Okay, so right, so basically, the thing that I remember most about this book is that there's this really weird inconsistency in some of the choices, right? You know, basically, where, so it's one of those books where sometimes you have a best friend with you along the ride. Now, basically, depending on what choice you make, she's either your loyal best friend or secretly out to kill you, right? with no explanation given for that. So it's a weird continuity error. I, very bizarre. I don't. It's never explained. Like there's an ending where she basically leads you into being consumed by a monster, but then if you don't pick the ending that leads to that choice, the choice if you don't pick the choice that leads to that ending, you know, nothing like that ever happens, and she just remains your friend, and there's no indication she's on your side otherwise, with no explanation given. Right? So it's very bizarre. Um, okay. And the next book is Welcome to the Wicked Wax Museum. Okay, so something that's kind of bugged me about that book is that for a really long time I thought that the woman on the cover was the main antagonist, but apparently not. Apparently it's just a female wax figure, I guess. So that was weird for me to realize that. Yeah, so this is probably one of the more, even though there isn't actually much blood described, it's probably one of the more graphic books in the series because there are, numerous parts of the book that involve discussion of like, you know, body parts being separated from, each other, and basically the main villain, once her like true face is revealed, it's described in this incredibly horrific like manner where it's like this like, it's like this worm this worm eaten burnt remnant of a wax figure. Like uh, that stuck with me. Um, it's also kind of interesting because like there's this bit where in one of the storylines the main antagonist henchman, um, you know gets you to gets you into his clutches by like literally just going up to you as a total stranger, like in a limo or something, and being like, "Hey, don't you want to get in my car?" it's, that's something. Um, right. Okay. So the next one is Scream of the Evil Genie. Okay. So so this so as the title would indicate, this is a book about an evil genie, and so the thing is, okay, so I mentioned this before, right? So Arlstein's hatred of Barney and friends, it comes back to the fore in part of this one, because basically, um, you know, there's this thinly disguised parody of Barney who you, the protagonist, utterly loathe and think is stupid, in a way that makes it clear the reader is like meant to share that opinion, right? Now, it's important to know that Arlstein, he did not just personally hate Barney and Friends because he didn't like the show in and of itself. He also had a different reason to dislike it, which was that he actually did a competing kids TV show, I believe, uh, called Eureka's Castle, right? Like, or okay, if it wasn't, I'm not sure if it was competing. If it wasn't competing, it was something in the same industry, right? So he may have had feelings about it for that reason, right? I mean, it's also possible he may have been bitter that his kids show didn't become as like wildly successful as Barney and Friends. Maybe I don't know. That's just speculation, though. Um, that's kind of funny. It's also another one of the books where there's an ending where you can get chewed out for making a stupid choice. I, I have fond memories of reading this one in middle school. Uh, Here it is. Also, here's the previous book here too. Yeah, it's a 12th book. Okay. Right. Okay. Now the creepy creations of Professor Shock. Right, so this book story wise it's kind of, I don't necessarily mean this in a negative sense, but it's kind of all over the place. Like there's a lot of different stuff that can kind of happen to you depending on what you choose to do. Basically, like in one of the storylines, you have to fight against like evil AI. And the other one is just like a bunch of weird stuff happening in an alternate universe. It's probably not my favorite book in the series, but it's definitely not terrible, I don't think. Please Don't Feed the Vampire, which accurately features a vampire dog on the cover. I don't remember if it's a poodle in the book, but there's a vampire dog. Um, Now, the two main storylines in this book are that either you become a vampire yourself, or as the cover indicates, your dog gets turned into a vampire, and you have to figure out what to do about it. Now, I think this is a pretty good book. I keep saying pretty good, whatever. Anyway, um, there's this like really sweet ending in it where you just end up like getting married to another vampire, and you have lots of vampire kids. um, there's also this weird part where the player can choose. I think it's probably to call you the player because these are game books, right? Where the player can choose to drink human blood, but then the narrative just chews you out for choosing to do something so weird, and just like pretty much ends the story right there. Okay. Now here's an oddity, by the way. Here's an oddity. So the 14th book in this series, on the back cover, it says, "Don't miss the next book in this series, Secret Agent Grandma." Right? But the weird part is Secret Agent Grandma is actually 2 books after this one, so I really wonder what happened there. It's kind of odd. We'll never know. I don't know. Yeah. Yes, Secret Agent Grandma. Yes. So, now this may actually be, if I remember, I think this is probably actually the first Give Yourself Goosebumps book that I ever read, I think. Probably. Um, I remember having to like put lots of bookmarks in it so I could, so I could do all the choices, and not lose my place and so on. Yeah, so this book has some, there's a storyline in this book where your grandmother is an evil alien, and I think there's another storyline where she's a secret agent or something. Yeah, this one's kind of offbeat. Yeah. And, now that I think about it, I think it's really been a little while since I read that one, actually. Yeah, come to think of it, I don't actually have I don't actually have a clear memory of, actually have a clear memory of rereading that one recently. I don't think so. No, no, I do not. Yeah. The next book is Little Comic Shop of Horrors. Right. So as the title would indicate, this book has a comic book theme. Basically, there are like a number of parodies of popular superhero teams. Like, for example, the parody of X-Men called The Wise Guys, with like, the letter Y, obviously punning on the expression Wise Guys. So yeah. Now, this is one of the books that I wanted to read for a long time, but never actually had a physical copy for a little while. So it was pretty cool when I actually did finally get to read it. It was weird because, like, for a long time I had books 1 through 16 and 18, but not 17, so it was a really weird gap. you know, I, Attack of the Beastly Babysitter. Okay, so this is probably one of my favorite books in the entire series because of the Dare storyline. So basically this book has two storylines. One of them is called the fun storyline, one of them is the game storyline. And I just think that the game storyline is so well done, right? It has lots of interesting, interactive, fun games, some of which require you to do some in real life with them properly. And I think Dare is a really memorable villain. You know, even if character wise, admittedly, he isn't really sketched out very much beyond just being like, you know, beyond just being an evil guy. I still think he's memorable and well written. Mm. He makes the appropriate sense of dread, I think. Just, yeah. My throat's getting tired. Excuse me. The next book is Escape from Camp Run for Your Life. Right. Okay. So this book is about an evil camp, right? It's pretty interesting, I guess. There's this whole thing. It's got another one of those things where you get chewed out for making a stupid decision if you decide to eat blue eggs. Okay. Toy terror batteries included. Yeah, this one's about like a bunch of evil toys that come to life, and there's like an evil doll on the cover who's like the main antagonist of one of the storylines. The other storyline involves you having to fight a robot. A toy robot is evil. Um, it's, The Twisted Tale of Tiki Island. So this is one of those books that has a maze, yeah, that catches you out if you try to cheat, right? Where basically, an Attack of the Beast of the Babysitter also, where basically there are two endings to the maze, right? And one of them is the one you can reach legitimately, and the other one is the one that you can only reach by cheating. So if you select that one, you get a bad ending, right? Yeah, I mean, I guess in a print book like that, you don't really have too many other ways to guard against cheating, I guess. Um, all right. Return to the Carnival of Horrors. Now, okay, personally, right? Personally, I think that this one is very interesting because I think it's the only sequel book in the series that is a sequel to another Give Yourself Goosebumps book. And I think it may actually be, as MJ on Cypher said, I think it may actually be better than the original. I mean, possibly, possibly. I think it's very well done. There's a lot of. It's kind of interesting how there's a mixture of like new and familiar rides and games in it. Obviously it's got the same Evil Carnival theme as the first book in the series. Does it the title? It's Return of the Carnival Horse. Does that? Yeah. If I didn't say it, it's Return of the Carnival Horse, right? Yeah, I think it's very well done. It's engaging. Now the next one is Zapped in Space. Now that one, okay, that one has a bit of a virtual reality theme. Now what's interesting is that for a long time that was considered dated, right? But now virtual reality has actually become more of a real thing again. That's notable. So basically, you have to choose between playing two virtual reality games. One of them is set in this very snowy area, and the other one is sort of set in space, other planets. It's one of those got to win, you make it out alive, that sort of thing. Notable thing is this is the first book with cover artist Craig White instead of the cover artist of all the previous books, except for the first one. Mark Nagata, the first one, as I mentioned, was done by Tim Jacobus. They want to do the cover art for the original main Goosebumps series. Okay, now Lost in Stink-Eye Swamp. Now, as you might guess from the title, this has a spooky swamp theme. So there's this bit where your friend turns out to be a ghost, depending on what you choose to do. And there's also a bit where you can encounter a ghoul, so that's memorable. Yeah. Okay. First special edition coming here. Okay. Shop till you drop dead. Yes. Now this is a very good one. Now Lennon Hawk, who's a YouTuber who did Goosebumps reviews before they're mostly taken down after he broke up with his girlfriend, because he did them with her. He mostly hated the Give Yourself Goosebumps series, or at least didn't like it very much. But he made an exception. He made an exception for this book. He really seemed to like it. And I would agree with him. It's a pretty good book. So basically, the premise of it is that you have to go around collecting items. Well, in one of the storylines. And in the other storyline, you're just trying to get out of an evil mall, right? So both storylines involve an evil mall, right? Or a cursed mall. Yeah, I'm not clear on who the purple monster on the cover is supposed to be. I don't recall that you encounter him in the actual book. So basically, it's another one of the books where there's virtually no continuity. There's no continuity between storylines, right? Like basically, because both the storylines involve wandering around the same evil mall, right? But you find completely different stuff, in both versions without any explanation as to the difference, right? And again, I'll say it again, as MJ Cypher himself said this. I just need to say that because I want to make it clear that I'm influenced by him, right? I'm not trying to deny any influence. I'm not trying to deny that I was influenced by him. So I can make that clear, right? I don't want people to accuse me of plagiarizing. Anyway. So okay now, right? Okay, so after this book, we have the first. Again, I keep on going by release date here, including special editions, right? So after this book, we have the first special edition, Into the Jaws of Doom, right? So the premise of this book is that you have to fight an evil supercomputer that basically takes over the whole thing. Now, this is probably by far the most difficult Give Yourself Goosebumps book to, play, so to speak. Right? No, I think, yeah, play is a appropriate term. Yeah, these are games. Yeah, play is appropriate. Yeah. I mean, basically you have to go on different floors, collect different items, and it's basically it's very easy to get a bad ending if you mess up, right? And it's often way more difficult to guess exactly what you should do next, in my opinion, than it is in most of the other books in the series. Now, Damien from Damien's Gamebook webpage, he seemed to feel this was like more of a proper game book than most of the books in the series because it had more of the components that proper game books apparently have, like dice and so on, so the whole system set up. Yes. Right. Okay, now next is yes, Alone in Snakebite Canyon. So the cover of this book is not misleading. There is actually a snake that plays a key role in the storyline. So I think this is a pretty well done book. So one of the storylines you get a magic pair of eyes, that will not realize. I don't remember. Anyway, but whatever, whether real or not, they're eyes that will allow you to transform into certain kinds of animals if you choose. There's there's one ending where you turn into a bear and you get tranked. That's interesting. Um, yeah, checkout time at the Dead End Hotel. So this book is, as the title and cover make it seem, as generally this book is about the player being trapped in a cursed hotel. Yeah, notably, there's this bit early on in the book where you can get a bad ending just by eating some food, and then you get poisoned and die, which is an oddly mundane death for these books, which usually have the player character killed through more family friendly or supernatural, means, right? Like, so that's interesting. Now, okay, so one thing that's really notable about this book, besides the main contents of it, right, is that at least some versions of the book anyway. Let me see if my version has it. Yeah. Um, you know, it, in the back, they have a walkthrough for the first special edition book. So that's interesting. Let's see if mine has it. Yep. Okay, this version has it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're stuck on if you're trying to play do the first special edition and you're stuck, I would really recommend checking out the. If you have this book, also I'd really recommend checking the back to see if it has the walkthrough for that book. If anyone asks in the comments, I can give you the information from it if you don't have the book and you don't want to get it. But you have the first special edition book and you're trying to play it or something. You're in trouble. Okay. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Now there's the next special edition book, which is Return to Terror Tower. Right. So this book is basically it's a sequel, right? It's a sequel. It's a sequel to not to a previous Give Yourself Goosebumps book, but instead it's a sequel to one of the books in the main Goosebumps series. And it's the first time, but not the last time, that will happen in the series, as we'll get to. So basically, I think this one is very good. It's not nearly as difficult. It's not nearly as challenging as the first special edition book, but it's pretty good though. Um, Now, see, this one it holds a special place in my heart because I think it was the first special edition Give Yourself Goosebumps book that I ever read. Like I read it back when I didn't have access to very many of the books, right? So it was kind of special. I mean, one thing that's interesting is as a sequel to the Goosebumps book, A Night in Terror Tower, they mentioned it's called Return to Terror Tower. Yeah. It sort of it adds some lore, right, from the first book. So one thing that's kind of funny though about this is that so there's a section of the book where you have to pick which items you want to take with you, right, to help on your journey. And I remember that before the list of items, the text gives a more general summary, a survey of the items available in your in your backpack. And there's some stuff listed like a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich or something, and a math textbook. And I remember thinking, well, why can't I take the math textbook with me? You know what I mean? Like couldn't I use that as a weapon? Right? I don't know. It's like I don't understand why I can't take that. Like I mean, couldn't I hit people with it? Like I mean, like anyway, right, okay, Knight of a Thousand Claws. Some trivia here. Um, apparently, the cat lady on the cover here was physically modeled after the cover artist's wife, so that's cool. Um, well, I mean, if this covers any indication, his wife is probably pretty hot. Yes. so, so one thing that's notable about this book is it's another book where there's a feature of you, the protagonist, that might make some people feel excluded, except it's not an ethnic or gender thing. It's that you hate cats, right? You just really, you just really, really hate cats. Uh, so if you're reading that book and you either don't hate cats or you find it impossible to make yourself relate to someone who would hate cats, it, you're probably not going to be able to relate to the protagonist, as much as you're intended to by the author. Uh, but yeah, so basically this book, it's called is about how you have to fight, evil cats, and there's a cat lady who I think, if I remember correctly, like may or may not be evil depending on which storyline you're talking about, and so on. Um, okay. Invaders from the big screen. Yes. So okay, so this book this book is about how you have to like go into various. You basically get magically transported into various movies, and you sort of you're within the universes of those films, and you have to figure out what to do, which usually involves following the film's plot, right? But these are all fiction films, right? So although they're all obviously pastiches or examples of existing real film genres, right? So there's a horror one that involves being in a haunted house, you know, and there's like and one where you have to fight against an evil, where you play like I think a James Bond type character or something, where you have to fight against an evil mad scientist who's like got aquatic plants or something. I'm trying to remember something like that. I think. And one thing that's weird about this book is that the cover is very misleading because it makes it seem like the premise is creatures from the big screen coming into our world when in reality, as I mentioned, the main premise is creatures is us entering, the fictional world. That's a bit odd. Um, yeah. There's another special edition next. Oh, sorry. All right, so the next one is the special edition book, trapped in the circus of fear. Right now, this book, as it makes sense, this book basically it's yeah. Instead of an evil carnival like in two of the previous books in the series, this is about an evil circus. Um, and obviously, as the title indicates, it's about how the player has to try to escape, from said evil circus, right? So it's pretty good. I don't have a ton to say about that one, but it's all right. Um, the circus is like run by this evil woman, and it's another book. It's another one of special edition books where you have to like collect items, or to choose which items to use, and so on. Yeah. Okay, so now the next book in the series is Your Plant Food, which is a book where, as far as I can recall, the only major thing that the two main storylines in this book, right, have in common is that they both take place inside a um hang on a sec. Um yeah, so um pardon me, I forgot I had to look up the term for the plant equivalent of a zoo. I forgot what I forgot the term, but so basically the only thing the two main storylines have in common is they're both set in this like botanical gardens, indoor like botanical gardens type place. Um and beyond that, yeah, they don't really have very much in common at all. Um I think one of them involves a virus that turns you into a plant or something. Um, and the other one involves fighting these like creatures. I think I don't remember this book very well. Well, it's weird. Okay, because I remember lots of specific parts of it really well, but the overall stories just don't mesh in my head. Anyway, yeah, okay. Right. Right. Okay. Now the no, I'm not. I might be. This might be the wrong order. Okay. So the next special edition book is the Night at Pain House, which is a trapped in a haunted house story. Now, the notable thing about this one is that while it's not probably not for most people, it's not as difficult as the first book to do. It still sort of makes a point of being really difficult, where it advertises that basically there's only one good ending. You know. However, however, the thing about that is that even in right, even in that good ending, um, it actually ends with you and your friend deciding to go back into the haunted house, right? Even though you've just escaped. Uh, for some reason, I can't remember if it's on a dare or something. I don't remember. And then that's it. That's it. That's the that's the ending. So that's kind of odd. Uh, like, uh, so yeah, because of that, you could argue that the book doesn't actually have a truly happy ending. You know. Uh, anyway, it's a bit debatable, but yes. Okay. Now the next book is the Werewolf of Twisted Tree Lodge. Right. Okay. Uh, Now, you might think, now looking at that, right, you might think, oh, this is just another werewolf themed book, like A Night in Werewolf Woods. And okay, while to a certain extent that is true, that description might be a bit misleading because in a lot of ways it's really not done in the same way exactly. Like it's not like werewolves everywhere like it kind of is in the fifth book. It's more like werewolves just kind of pop up occasionally amidst a number of other threats, right? You know, right. So this book is actually kind of odd. So it's basically the premise of the story is that you win. If I remember correctly, you win a horror short story writing contest and get invited to like this lodge with a bunch of like notable horror writers, but fictional notable horror writers. I think as your prize. But the twist is that you know you actually plagiarize your winning story, right? I, so you get sent there, and basically whatever you choose to do, things just go amiss you know in one way or another. And there's this whole meta thing and parts involving like you following the rules of a story you find written down, and so on. Um, and if I remember correctly, I think that doesn't turn out as well for you as you hoped, and so on. So yeah, it's an odd one, but not in a bad way. Um, it definitely feels like some thought was put into it, or at least it was meant to seem like some thought was put into it. I don't know. Um, okay, next one it's only a nightmare. So this book is about how basically you get trapped in this dangerous dream world, right? And you have to deal with that. You know, and for the most part, in the book, for the most part, all involves one way or another, you having to deal with this entity, who I believe, if I remember correctly, is called the Sleep Master. Now it's another book where there isn't really very much continuity between scenarios, right? So in one storyline, the Sleep Master actually isn't the real enemy, and you fight with him against the real enemy. And in other storylines, the Sleep Master actually is the real enemy, and so on. It's that sort of thing. There's this really fun storyline where basically, because you're dreaming, you just get to choose to do whatever you want. I mean, within the limits of a print book, but like right, which obviously means that in practice you can only make a few choices at a time, but it has this kind of feel to it, like wish fulfillment feel to it. You know, I mean, until things go wrong, go amiss, obviously, and you have to solve the conflict. Right? There's this ending that I don't know. I just think it's very well done in it. I just think it's kind of what's the word? I'm tempted to say sweet, but that's not it. That's not quite the right word. It's very. I just think it's very. I just think it's kind of emotionally affecting. I don't know. Okay. Mm, mm. The next one is the next special edition book. I believe it's called Curse. Yeah, Curse of the Cave Creatures. Um, yeah. So this is very much it's very much kind of a it's a I don't know if anyone else anyway I don't know if if you're watching this video I don't know if you're familiar with the fantasy children's game book series, Wizards, Warriors, and You. I mean, I'm not, but I've read about it, which apparently Stein wrote for before he did this series. Sorry, and this book apparently in a lot of ways is kind of a throwback to that, because it's this sort of fantasy story where you have to choose which item you want to use to defeat this powerful threat, mainly, right? Now, one thing that's kind of notable is there is a review on Damien's Gamebook webpage. I don't remember if it's by Damien or someone else, where, if I remember correctly, where the reviewer he notes some sort of error in bug biology in the book. I don't remember exactly what it is. It's like either spiders are described as insects, or something like that, which I just thought was kind of funny. So it's a pretty good book, I guess. Okay, it came from the internet. So this book, right? This book is basically it's kind of a time capsule of like the late '90s internet, partially. It's very much kind of meant to ride that wave. Conceptually, mostly it's about an evil computer virus that is basically it's both a virus in the computer sense and also a virus in the human medical sense, right? Like, and if it bites you, which it does very early on in the story, regardless of which storyline you pick, um, you start losing memory. Get it, because computer viruses erase memory and so on. So this book doesn't really have two. Yeah, it doesn't really have two full separate storylines. Basically, both storylines involve you having to deal with the evil virus I mentioned. It's just that The story, which one you pick just results, it just changes what method you use to try to deal with that situation, right? Okay, elevator to nowhere. Right. So this book is basically, um, this one is mainly about alternate universes, right? So basically, the two main storylines are you either have to go to various alternate worlds you know, because I think it's because you have to find your uncle or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And the other storyline is about an evil alternate universe version of your uncle, who's the inventor who created the machine that lets you go to alternate universes. I should mention that. An evil alternate universe version of your uncle, who is a headhunter who wants your head, and you have to deal with him. And one thing that's kind of disappointing about it is that you can't explore most of the alternate universes, right? Very much. I mean, alternate universes obviously sounds like a really rich concept for a game book, right? I mean, but like most of the universes, you can't really do very much in them. You just do a little bit, and then you either get a bad ending, or you escape back to the machine and go to another universe. Right? It's a very good book, and it's one that I really looked forward to reading for a long time before I actually read it because I read the premise, and I thought the alternate universe thing seemed really interesting. Right? Anyway, don't mind that. Anyway, okay, so Hocus Pocus horror, right? So this one, yeah, it's a magic theme, it's a magic theme book, but it's not that similar to Under the Magician's Spell. Again, as MJ Cypher points out, you know, I just feel the need to credit him as much as possible. Right? Yeah, so he was correct about that. Yeah, so yeah, this is another one with not much continuity between scenarios. It's pretty good, I guess. Right. Now Ship of Ghouls. Okay, so this one is what the cover might indicate is not. Well, it does take place at sea. It's not really very focused on sharks on the whole. Well, at least not the traditional kind. I mean, there's like one part of the book where you have to deal with sharks, but they're not really the main antagonist. Yeah, they're not really the main antagonist of any of any of the storylines. Really, I don't think. Um, you know, yawn. Anyway, yeah. So I guess I don't really have a ton to say about this one. I guess. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now we come to the last the last special edition that I have read, which is, and I can't remember for certain whether or not I read it in full, but I at least read it in part, which is Revenge of the Body Squeezers, which is a sequel to a book not in the main Goosebumps series, but in the Goosebumps 2000 spin-off series, a different Goosebumps spin-off series from Give Yourself Goosebumps, which is not gamebook themed, but is rather simply a straightforward sort of sequel series to Goosebumps. Which, for some reason, if I remember correctly, they don't really have back cover summaries. They just have excerpts from the text in the back. I don't know. Anyway, something like that. Yeah, it's a sequel to one of the books in that. Well, actually, two of the books, which is like I said, it's a two-parter. Um, so it's a pretty funny book. So there's a scene for the book that a lot of people seem to note where you kind of get tricked into thinking that it's a good idea to go to Leonard Nimoy's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and start attacking it with a pickaxe. Like, yeah, you don't see that kind of humor very often in these books. Um, I Even though I read that part of it, for the life of me, I can't remember why the character does that. But yeah, if I remember correctly, I think doing that results in a bad ending. You know, if I remember correctly. Okay, next book. Okay, next book is okay. Escape from Horror House. Right. So okay, so now as a certain Give Yourself Goosebumps as a certain Give Yourself Goosebumps blogger pointed out, I feel the need to mention it here because it's just kind of funny. You know that the title of this book is extremely inaccurate, right? It's not. It makes it seem the title and the cover make it seem like the story is about you trying to escape from a haunted house, right? When in reality, you know, it's actually just about your own house, you know, getting haunted, and you have to deal with the infestation, right? I, so yeah, this is another book that doesn't really have two separate storylines. It's just one storyline, and it just branches off in two different main ways. You can several different ways that you can deal with the threat, which in this case is the poltergeist. And also, yeah, unlike the way the cover depicts it, your your house itself doesn't literally become this evil sentient thing. There's just an evil poltergeist within it. Right? Like your house itself doesn't actually have teeth, you know, or anything like that. But yeah, parts of the book are pretty gruesome. Like yeah, just with your face being melted off, you know, and so on. Mm, mm. Okay. So so now I've come to the last give yourself this book that which I am certain that I've read in full. I might have read. I think I may have brushed over Scary Birth with you, but I can't recall if I ever actually finished it. I don't think I remember enough of it to discuss it in this retrospective. Right? No, I guess I don't. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So Yes, because of that Into the Twister of Terror is the last book I'll be discussing in this video. Okay, so now this is kind of okay. This is something of a bizarre one. One of the books fell behind a bit. Yeah, so oh, here's the cover of One Night in Pain House. I've showed this before. Yeah. Okay, this one is kind of odd. It basically all the storylines involve the titular Twister, right? You know, which may or may not generate feelings of terror for the reader. I guess certainly generates feelings of terror for the main character, which I guess they were one and the same in this case. So your mileage may vary on that. Anyway, but the thing is, beyond the fact they all involve the Twister, they have very little. They have very little in common otherwise, right? Like basically, it's just a Twister-themed game book, which is a bit unusual. I think it's a bit unusual to have a game book that's just themed around a specific natural disaster. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it's relatively unusual. Um, yeah. So basically, one of the storylines involves you having to work with scientists who want to do something with the Twister. I don't remember what. And they may or may not be evil. I don't remember that either. And the storyline involves you dealing with talking animals who may want to kill you. I don't remember. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting and bizarre. Uh, yeah, okay, well, yeah, well, that's that, I guess. I guess I just before I end this video, I guess I just like to close with an interesting note. So, one thing that's kind of bizarre is that there's conflicting evidence as to whether or not R.L. Stine himself actually wrote all of these books, or whether at least some of them were written by a ghostwriter, right? So basically, R.L. Stine himself, you know, claims that he wrote all the books himself, but like at least one or two other people who, at least some of whom are notable authors in their own right, you know, claimed at one or more points that they actually ghost wrote, you know, some of the books for him. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Uh, I mean, many of the books in the series certainly do feel like they're written by R.L. Stine, right? And and he actually had a history of writing game books, you know, before he I think before he even started writing teen or kid horror regularly. So I think you know, so I'm not really sure who's telling the truth there. Um, maybe someone watches this video if anyone watches this video wants to dig deep or uncover that mystery, please tell me the results of your research in the comments. I might research that myself further with you in the future. I don't know. Um, that's interesting. Okay, so like I was saying, that yeah, they do feel like they were also like, for example, it's hard to mention anyone else having that. Well, I mean, for example, the jabs at Barney, those really seem like an Harlestone thing. I mean, he really did not like Barney. Anyway, but so one last note. So this is not at the moment. this is not the first video in a series. I'm not planning at the moment on reading the rest of the Give Yourself Goosebumps books in the near future, and then doing a retrospective for those. I just figured I'd do a retrospective for the ones I already have to do. Right? I mean, I do plan to read them at some point in the future, but I just have no idea when. Right? So because of that, don't wait with bated breath for next installment. Right? I don't. I mean. All right.